Dame Judi Dench made her professional debut with the Old Vic Company and has starred in productions by the National Theatre and the Royal Shakespeare Company. Heralded as one of the greatest British actresses of the last century, she has won 10 BAFTAs, 7 Laurence Olivier Awards, 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards, 2 Golden Globes, an Academy Award, and a Tony Award. She's appeared as M in every James Bond. She has appeared as M in every James Bond film since GoldenEye, in period dramas including Pride and Prejudice, The Importance of Being Earnest and Cranford, and a wide range of other films, including Chocolat and Shakespeare in Love. Normally reluctant to speak publicly, she's agreed to come and take part in a question and answer session during a break from filming her next project. I'm going to start off by asking her a few questions, and then after that we're going to open it up. She's agreed to, well, you can ask her anything you want, and I think she's going to answer most things. Afterwards, she's going to be doing a book signing, so you can buy a copy of her book and furthermore, and get her to sign it. Okay. Looking through your kind of list of works, there is a huge range of things. I mean, from James Bond to the period dramas to the voiceover for Angelina Ballerina. How do you decide what work to do?
Well, I mean, the thing that people get wrong about offering you a part, if you're lucky enough to be offered a part, is that they see you in something, and then you get a script shortly after that of almost exactly the same kind of thing. Which is the last thing you want to do. What you want to do is, you know, I've said recently, what I would like to do is play a woman who comes from Afghanistan and turns into a dragon in the second act and is a tightrope walker. Yeah. You know, you long to be given something that is the total antithesis of what you've last done. And it's thrilling when that happens, and lucky to be offered a job at all, I think. But that's what I look for. I'm very bad at choosing, and I don't read the play. I've tried to be better at this. I was asked to do a play by Peter Orr called The Royal Family, and I didn't read it and went to the first reading and thought I've made a terrible mistake. And actually I had. But I've got better at that now. I've got better at getting somebody to read it and tell me. But it's entirely really to do with who asks you to do it and the other actors in it. Never to do with doing a one-woman show, which I wouldn't go near.
So you've done an incredible range of things. It sounds like I looked through your book and it's like a who's who of Great British theatre. Is there anyone who's particularly influenced you, or?
You've got a fortnight, have you? There are many, many people. I mean, when I went to the Vic in 1957, that was to be in the company when I was there from 57 to the end of 61. And I mean, the leading actor at the time was John Neville, and I learnt everything about behaviour in the theatre and how to behave and how to rehearse and how to do your homework and how not to come the next day having not done your homework, so you take up a lot of people's time by working out things that you could have worked out at home, and being part of a company, which is the thing I like best, much better than anything else. So, and then it was run then by Michael Bentool. It was the last year of the 5-year plan, because when he took over the Vic, it was in dire straits, and he decided to do every play of Shakespeare in the 5 years. And he started with Richard Burton in Hamlet, and he repeated Hamlet, lucky for me, he repeated Hamlet in the last year, and that's when I went to the Vic, just out of drama school. So I got terrible notices for Ophelia, but that's the way you learn.
So presumably kind of etiquette for film is quite different to like working in theatre. How did you make the transition, and what kind of inspired you to then start going into film?
I'll tell you a very tricky story about a film. When I did GoldenEye, I think, I went to the premiere of GoldenEye, and I suddenly saw this actor I knew. And I said, "Hello, what are you doing here?" He said, "Well, I'm in the film as well." That's the tricky bit. It's not you can make a company of it. And the Bond films, they are a company because by nature of the fact that they're the same group of people the nucleus of the same group of people, so you do feel like a company. But it's, of course, you can start at the end of a film, and then you come back to the beginning. So you have to have that unlike the theatre. And you never have a captive audience. People can be shutting off the film or television in their homes, turning off the switch and get, at least in the theatre, you get an audience, people who come to see you, and you have to tell them the story. And you can see if they leave.
No one's left yet.
No, luckily. So, I mean, and I, for film anyway, I started off by going to an audition for a film and being told that I would never make films, ever. And then later on than that, Mrs. Brown was going to be made for television. And Billy Connolly asked Bob Hoskins to play Queen Victoria, but he turned it down. So luckily, I became the understudy and played it. And it was done actually for television. It was only Harvey Weinstein who said, this should be a film. And after that, then I got offered films. It's just luck. It's just luck in most cases, I'm afraid. Depressing.
One of the things that I think probably came out in that last answer is that Dame Judi kind of drops names without almost seeming to realise that they're names. And one of my favourite bits in her book was when she talked about how she happened, the company she was working with got Grace Kelly to present her with a Paddington bear for, she was about to have a baby, and they got Grace Kelly to present her with a Paddington bear. And for me, that was about one of the most surreal things I could possibly imagine.
It was quite surreal for me. Especially as I was in a play called London Assurance, which has actually been done at the National, but we did the first production of it for a very long time. And I got more and more and more pregnant, playing a virgin in a Gloucestershire garden. I got very, very unsuitable. Until I think the last week somebody said, has a line to me saying, do you feel nothing stirring? And it brought the house down. I thought it's time to leave. It's time. And that night, Grace Kelly, the night I was leaving, happened to become C. Donald Syndon. So that's how that happened. Luck.
Does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
Please ask some questions.
At lunchtime, Dame Judi said they will have enough questions, won't they? And I went, no, they'll have plenty of questions. So please do put some hands up.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I've got a non-theatre related question, if I may.
Please.
Who is your favourite Bond?
Oh, you see, I knew that would happen. Do you know, when I spoke to the Oxford Union, that was the first question. How similar you are. Only here's better. How can I say that? Now, how can I say that? How would Pierce feel? You mean Bonds I haven't met? I could say that, couldn't I? No, well, I can't. I can't say any of that. I don't know. Both very... The two, I did Pierce's 4, and I've done Daniel's 2, and we're about to do another one. So they're very different, the two of them, the two boys. Both good actors, both self-deprecating, very attractive. Both with a sense of humour, essential. So I don't have a favourite, they're two different people, and both easy, thank God, to work with.
Okay, there were another couple. Yep.
I've always been told if you could do anything besides the theatre, with a love for the theatre, you should. And I was wondering if you've ever felt like you could do anything else, or there was ever a moment where you considered doing anything else? And then the other question,
Can I now do anything else, you mean? Bit late. Could I before? Yes, I wanted to be a designer. That's what I really trained for. I didn't finish my training because I decided I went to... I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, because I've said this before and things, but I went to Stratford in the 50s and I saw the most wonderful production of King Lear, where I hadn't been used to seeing a great open stage. All I'd done, and I'd gone on to work in York Rep, was to know about designing a play which you get a set and the curtain comes down for an interval and you change the set and the curtain goes up again. That's what I'd understood. And then suddenly I went to Stratford, where there was this enormous open stage with a curtain that never came down, with a huge upturned popperdom, really, on the stage, with a great rock in the middle of it, which was a cave, a throne, and everything. And the curtain, of course, never came down. And from one scene stopped here, and the other thing came straight. And it was, like a kaleidoscope, like a film, I suppose. And I guessed, and I think it was overnight, that I would never have that imagination. I wish I had it, but I decided that I remember talking to my father about it, saying, I don't think I'm ever going to be the kind of designer I would like to be. And so my brother, who only ever wanted to be an actor, that's how I got the idea. I expect if he hadn't been in the family, then I would have had to think of something else. I sometimes long to design something. Very critical of design now in a play.
Did you encourage your daughter Finty to act, or were you kind of reluctant?
My daughter only ever wanted to be an acrobatic nurse. I said, you'll go to the top of the tree, I said, if you do that, swinging down the ward upside down. Wonderful. And I suppose she kind of, in a way, caught it from both Michael and me. And if there's nothing else you want to do, then you must do it. And by that time, I'd kind of chucked theatre design and decided that was the thing I wanted to do, though I was rather half-hearted about it at the beginning.
Okay.
What else?
Yep.
With the cuts to the arts at the moment, what's your advice to people going into the arts in general? What hope is there?
Exactly. What hope is there? I don't know what the answer to that is. I have no idea, except lobbying. What good does that do? I know it doesn't do any good. Private enterprise and people hoping that you'll get sponsorship of some kind. But I know at least 3 theatres that I think are going to close because of it. And I don't know what else you can do. Because people then will turn around and say, there is a shortage of money, what about hospitals? And you think, well, fair enough, but we have to have the arts. And there are many people who don't understand that. But I think it's essential. It's essential and has been essential for, eons. You just have to be very, very patient. Hope that I would say lobbying, but I don't think that does do any good. I've done that myself. It doesn't do any good. And I don't know what government is going to give us any more money, certainly not at the moment. But I know the Yvonne Arnaud in Guildford probably is in a bad way, and I think the Rose at Kingston's in a bad way. And I know several other small theatres that are. So it's just a question of hoping that you find somebody who isn't a Philistine. But go on doing it, if that's what you want to do. Somehow, fight for your right, whatever way you can.
Gentleman over there.
What is the most inspirational piece of direction you've ever been offered?
Sorry?
The most inspirational piece of direction that a director has offered to you in your career?
You mean given to me as an inspiration? Yes, I'll tell you. I did Antony and Cleopatra at the National with Tony Hopkins, directed by Peter Hall, and I was very concerned about it because people used to openly laugh at me when I said I was going to play the part. Yes, it's true. That's not a tale, it's absolutely true. They did, rudely. And he said to me 2 wonderful things, which I've always passed on to me. I've had lots of good advice and good direction, but these 2 things are very essential for everything, any play you ever do, I think. One, he said, was, don't believe everything. You know how we go through a play and they say, somebody says something about your character and you think, oh, I must feed that in because that's obviously something I've got to do. That's not necessarily the truth. They need not necessarily be telling the truth about you. As he quoted Enid Barbus. Enid Barbus spends time with the 2 of them, goes back to Rome and is sitting in the pub with his friends and they say, okay, what's she like? And he then elaborates and says, oh, the barge she sat in, and elaborates like any of us might. and says, oh, while you were sitting there on the Nile, you could feel the perfume coming and everything, but, you know, he might well be exaggerating. You don't have to live up to something that somebody says. If you think that that is, you know, if you think that that is his agenda, and you know you understand your own. And he said another very good thing, and that is, he said, don't try and play all the character in every scene. He said, what you have to do with a character is play one aspect of it. I mean, it's hard, I know, when you've got one scene in a play. Then you have to be very, very brisk and choosy and remember that less is more. But he said, especially about Cleopatra, he said, if you play an aspect of her in each scene that you do, maybe by the end, you might have her, and the audience might understand about her. And that's a very reassuring thing to be told. If you have a huge part like King Lear, you know, you come on and you, if you're not careful, you strike 13, and you know, you've blown it in one go. So just try a little bit of each, of something. And then at the end, with any luck, she's there, or he's there. What else?
Stories from filming as time goes by?
Sorry?
Do you have any stories from filming as time
Oh,
goes by?
I have many stories of filming as time goes by. Yes, bad behaviour mostly. That, without question, doing a situation comedy is the most difficult thing I've ever done, of anything. Because you get together on a Tuesday, and you read it, you set it, you rehearse it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Then you get there on Sunday, and you do a huge technical rehearsal, and on Sunday night, the audience is sitting there waiting for you. And you have no idea about it, especially a comedy, if you can call it such a thing. You've no idea. You don't have, you know, in the theatre you have a preview, you have previews, and therefore you have a kind of, you have an actor's instinct, I think, about what is funny and how you time a line. But nevertheless, you don't know till you have that audience there. And you find yourself doing absurd things. I mean, the first one I did, I'd done one before, A Fine Romance, and I just remember in a scene that we'd rehearsed many, many times, I had to walk with, there were 3 glasses here. I had to walk with 2 glasses from a pub, you know, for a counter, and hand them to 2 people. What did I do when it came to it? I tried to lift up 3 glasses, of course. And, of course, lifted them up, the whole thing. The audience howl with laughter. They think, you stupid person. And you get cleaned up and you go back. And what do I do again? I do it again. Having rehearsed for a week that I pick up 2 and go back for 1. Why do you do that? I don't know. Fright. And you have to also go and be introduced to the audience. That's anathema to an actor beforehand. You know, somehow you have to go out and say, good evening, I'm very glad you come. Why? Just get out and do it and go home, I think. But, so it's very foreign, but don't let anyone tell you it's an easy option, that, because it is very, very frightening. Every Sunday night before them saying, and this is Geoffrey Palmer, here's Judi Dench, I used to say, how have I got myself into this? How have I got myself to stand here? There you are. Yes?
You acted in some period dramas. Have you ever wished you lived in a different historical?
Have I ever what?
Have you ever wished that you lived in a different historical time, or
Did I wished I lived there?
have you ever wished
In a different
Yes.
historical time.
No. I don't think so. Well, you know, we think that it's all so glamorous and lovely, and you're wearing a rather good costume. In actual fact, it was probably filthy. I don't want to be Elizabethan with all those things running in my hair and mice and never taking my clothes off. I don't want to do that. I like a bath. She didn't. But, you know, those kind of things, we glamorize a bit. We try not to. When I did Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet at the Vic, and we had wonderful clothes, wonderful. And he inspired. It wasn't very fashionable then, but he had them all sprayed. They were all dirty around the bottom. You know, there's no reason why Juliet's wearing a very, very clean nightie. Pretty unlikely. And Edith Evans came to see her. She said, oh, I didn't like it at all. She said, all those dirty clothes, she said. Can't win. So, no, not much, I don't think. I might suddenly remember that I did quite like it, and I'll come back and say.
Yes.
Do you go to the theatre often? And do you have any favourite theatres abroad?
Do I have any theatre work?
Favourite theatres abroad?
I do go to the theatre sometimes. I live out of London now, and if you're working, then I have a journey after it, and it's tricky for me a bit. But I do go, and I love the Old Vic in London, and I love the Haymarket. That's a very beautiful theatre, beautifully looked after, and acoustically the most marvellous theatre. But I'm fond of a lot of theatres for lots of reasons, you know. And recently I was in Venice, where we had taken Romeo and Juliet and played at the Fenice, and we'd done 3 performances there. And after that it was burnt down by an arsonist, and so we went to see it rebuilt, and it's absolutely, if you get the chance you must go, because it's a very, very beautiful theatre, and vast. I can't imagine what we were like in it. I hope we were okay, but the thought of it, looking at the size of the stage, we were all very young, 23 or 4, but it was all right. We went up an hour and a half late because there was a gondola crash outside. It was good, wasn't it? But yes, where was I? I played in West Africa twice. I actually lectured the second time, but the first time we went in 1963 to Ghana and Nigeria and Sierra Leone to do their 3 set plays. And what do you think they were? Macbeth, Twelfth Night, and Arms and the Man. I can't think that was very enlightening for people there, but they were brilliant because they had never seen the plays performed, and it was somehow very easy to tell the story, and it was very, very good for us because you, in a way, rethought the story. And it was much interrupted, the plays were much interrupted by people shouting something or running up. It was very exciting, very, very exciting indeed. And in Lagos, we played in the theatre in Lagos, which, when you wanted the curtain to come down, there was a little pipe in the corner that the stage manager could say, because the curtain could only come down if you spoke to the person who was sitting right at the back of the auditorium. No, the auditorium wasn't that big, actually, but anyway, he was called Mr. Obey-me, and they had to say, Mr. Obey-me, curtain down. And it all worked wonderfully, except one night, when it was Mr. Obey-me, curtain down, and no curtain came down. No curtain came down at all, because he wasn't there. He was afterwards known as Mr. Disobey-me. But it was very, very exciting and a challenge, and made us reevaluate the plays. Very hot, too.
Play Lady Bracknell.
Yeah.
I was just wondering how you decided to deliver the famous handbag.
Yes. John Neville once said that Edith Evans had done the greatest disservice to the British theatre by playing Lady Bracknell, because whatever way you say the line, the audience will probably say it for you. And I mean, they wait and they think. And a lot of people said to me, "Oh, you funked saying the line." I said, no, I didn't funk it. I just chose to say it a different way. I kind of whispered it. And it is the wonderful stage direction which says she tears up all the notes at that minute. You know, she takes notes in a little notebook. And there is a wonderful thing that I just call them, took 1,000 pieces, went on tearing. And if you don't say it, or if you even pause, somebody will say it for you too. It's like the Merchant of Venice, I'm afraid. The quality of mercy is not strange. Don't even bother to say it, because everybody will help you. You know, they will. It's true. You think I'm joking, but it's true. What's the best thing at Stratford was the fact that sometimes you would transpose something in a play. In some Shakespeare plays I've done, something will be slightly transposed, or the director will choose to do that way. And then you get students who come and sit on the front row with the script. And you go and you think this is, and you glance and you think this is going to fool them. This will really fool. And indeed it does, because they go, it's riveting. But I can't see very well now, so I can't see. I miss all that now, alas. I miss the audience, alas. I miss seeing them. Once in Richard II, I wasn't in it, but once in the Vic, the year of 1956, they went to a Broadway with Richard II, and as they were doing the lists, with the whole company, fortunately, faced upstage, with John Neville as Richard II facing downstage, a person entered at the back with an enormous suitcase, and they came down to an aisle, and they went along this aisle and held the suitcase like that, right along till they got their seat. Now, what would you say to somebody like that? I don't know. It's how you manage with mobiles now. I see Peter Maxwell Davis has said everybody with a mobile that goes off should be fined. And then somebody wrote a letter saying, no, they shouldn't be fined, there should be snipers all round the thing. It's true. It's true. You know, that everybody is asked to have the courtesy to turn them off. This is the moment where one should go off, isn't it? But, you know, it is very, very distracting indeed. Not only for, you know, an actor, but also for the audience. And it's discourteous. Anyway.
As a follow-on from that question, you've played a number of very sort of famous parts, like Lady Bracknell, like Lady Macbeth, Juliet. How do you go about approaching a part that is a sort of well-trodden path already and making it your own? Are there any tips or techniques that you use?
Have you heard that? Has everybody heard that? Yes. Well, I think you can only do it. I mean, the reason why Shakespeare's lasted for over 400 years is because people have approached something in a different way, in their interpretation and the director's interpretation of something. So you all, I mean, if all of us were asked to do one small line or paragraph or piece of something, we would all do it differently. We'd all do it slightly differently. And that's why they've lasted. And that's the only thing you can do. You can only prepare it like you have a huge, blank, as if you had blank pages, and you have to just absolutely look and decide what your director, of course, does. But between you and the other actors and who you're acting with, you come to a conclusion about something. Your interpretation of anger, or greed, or envy, or jealousy, or love, or whatever. And we would all, if we were all to interpret those words, we would all interpret them in a different way. And our attitude to them is all different because we come from different, angles. And so a group of people doing something, one group of people, we split everybody up, would be totally different from another one. Because of different things like, because of experience and your attitude, not only to your own character, but to the others. That's why, ever so slightly in the theatre, something will slightly change, because you'll be given another inflection, maybe one night. Ian McKellen and I used to try and trap each other by that. But just ever so slightly giving, it's very exciting. It's very, very exciting. And then when we did Antony, there's a great violent scene in it. And we didn't want to set it. Peter, or Anthony Hopkins and I said, can we leave this unstructured, unset? He said yes. And it used to be very exciting. I never quite knew where he was going to come from. So it was, there was a liveliness about it. It was very, very exciting indeed. And therefore it keeps it fresh, and it keeps it ever so slightly different.
You've done such a vast array of projects and acting as a whole. Do you have a project or a role or an achievement that you're most proud of?
That I want to do?
You're most proud of?
No. I don't know. I have no idea. what the answer is. It's like being asked what I would like to play. I have no idea what I even want to play, and nor ever I have had. I'd like to have played Hilda Vangold in The Master Builder at one time, much too late now, but I would have liked to have done that. But I never quite know. I have to be pushed in a direction by a director I would like to work with, and a group of people I would like to work with. So I'm not good at the projects of what I would want to do. But I...
Do you have one that you're most proud of?
Proud of? Yes. I suppose I am most proud of having played Cleopatra. Because a wonderful thing happened also on the first night of that, and that is, miraculously, on that night, the play fell into the best time we'd ever done it so far. All the rehearsals, and we rehearsed for a long time, everything just, and that's not very usual, but the first night is so, so at least I could say at the end of it, and to people, that is the best we can do. If you don't like it, that's the best we can do so far. Come back and see it in 6 months' time, when we've run it a bit and got better at it, hopefully. And Peter used to come and say, it's got a bit baroque. Well, I didn't understand what that meant until I came to direct something myself, Ken Branagh, in Much Ado. And I knew, when I'd gone back to see it, I knew exactly what baroque meant. Because it's when you tell actors to do something, and they do it, indeed they do it, but then they put a kind of extra bit on it. And if you get everybody doing that, the whole play is out of the window. Do you know? So I suppose that is what I think. What else?
Should we go with the blue shirt towards the back?
Blue shirt, yes.
I've had the pleasure of being on 2 film sets with you in the last...
You stand up.
Surely. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of being on 2 film sets with you in the last 10 years as a humble extra.
Never humble.
And on both of those occasions, I assume a well-known colleague of yours, Brian Blessed, has been present. Now, as I understand it from just this morning, Brian has put forward his candidacy to the chancellorship of Cambridge University. And I wonder if you've thought of doing the same.
No, I was asked to be a chancellor of a university. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that, because I'm petrified of making any kind of speech. I can talk to you like a conversation, but if I have to make a speech, that to me is too difficult. People think you're very effective if you say it. They think, well, that's rubbish if you're an actress. No, that's why I'm an actress, because I like using somebody else's lines, and I like being somebody else, and I don't much like being myself. Just to have to make speeches to people, and I don't, I can't do that. I actually genuinely can't do it. I was asked once to open the Kensington Antiques Fair, and I was sick in the taxi on the way there, and the taxi man put me out. When I got there, fortunately, the whole place was open and buzzing. I didn't have to do anything. So, no, I wouldn't. Is he going to be the Chancellor? Brian? Good voice. Give you a song or two, too. When will we find out this?
I only heard about an hour ago.
An hour ago?
No, he put his application forward an hour
Oh,
ago.
did he?
I don't know if we'll hear for months. Should we take a question from this side, because we haven't had one? On the back by the window.
With the dropping of the Q and the Moneypenny character from the James Bond series, how do you feel about the future of the M character?
Do Q and Moneypenny?
Because Q and Moneypenny have been dropped. How do you feel about the future of M?
I would hang in there a while. That's all I have to say. That's all I can say, actually. Because, of course, I'm bound by MI6. I'm not allowed to say. You should see the script. Now, I'm going to show you something. This is absolutely true. Recently, my family were down in the country with me. And they were, my brothers and wives, and we were all there, and we were outside. A beautiful day, we were outside. And I was told Now this is, I promise you, this is not exaggerating. I was told that the new Bond script was about to arrive. And I said, oh, that's fine. Oh, will you be there? I said, oh, yes, I'll be there. Now, you have to imagine that my lawn is there, my front door is there. This is what happened. You're me. And so suddenly, from this gate here, comes a man, totally in black, from head to foot. And, it's true. This is true. He goes, that's what he did. How can I tell you about Q&M? How can I possibly tell you about Moneypenny? I'd hang in there if I were you for a while.
What do you think of the importance of training in comparison to just learning and experiencing the job? Do you think training is essential for an actor at drama school? Or do you think you can learn in a different way by experiencing on the job?
Well, of course you can learn. Look at Alec Guinness. Look at, Geoffrey Palmer. Look at a lot of people who've never had training. And you can do that. But there are certain things that you have to learn. In a drama school, I think, certain things you have to learn before you do it. You have to learn, it's no good, for instance, if you're a tired person. Don't be a tired person, because you learn that at drama school, that there isn't room for that. There really isn't room. And you have to be able to sustain your voice. You have to be able to breathe properly. You have to be able to relax. And so you can't be, you learn not to be too tense. You learn how to project your voice. That's what I found most difficult. And I spent 3 years really at Central, just learning that from Sis Berry. And those things, if you could, and you can learn that, of course, I know at university, because you have footlights and everything here, so you can learn it there. And if you can do that and you don't wish to go to drama school, then good luck, and go ahead and do that. But I think the practical way, practically, drama school is good for that discipline and learning. We know that sometimes if you see an amateur production, they can do it for 3 nights or 4 nights, but maybe they'll run into trouble after that with voices and, they run out of kind of steam. So that's what it teaches you, really, I think. It can't teach you to act, really. You have to have that in you.
In the far corner? Yep.
How did you come to be singing Sending the Clowns on the Royal Albert Hall stage?
How did I come to do it? I came to do it because I did it at the National. I did Little Night Music at the National. I'd done it, can't remember quite when. Something like 12 or 14 years ago, we did a production. And I absolutely loved it, really loved it. And then suddenly I was asked to do it for Stephen, for his birthday. One of the most frightening things known to man, that. And that was where my drama school was, the Central School, was in the Albert Hall. I was there for the last 3 years it was there before it moved to Swiss Cottage. And I thought I knew that place very, very well, believe me. But because my eyesight isn't very good now, it looked as if I was standing looking at a kind of field of corn, and that when I looked upstairs, I thought, well, there's nobody up there. There's nobody up there at all. I couldn't, that's very, very fortuitous, I tell you. Really lucky. And that's how it happened.
Should we take one at the back over there? Yep.
When performing Shakespeare's text, do you personally prefer the original text or a modernized version? And perhaps this changes with context, but why and how?
Which Shakespeare's text, what?
The original versus a modernized text.
A modernized text?
Yeah.
What do you mean a modernized text?
Any type of modern English version rather than Shakespeare's original English.
You mean Shakespeare modernized?
Yes.
I wouldn't like that at all. Any good, is it?
Sorry?
Any good, is that? No, I think one of the great, great reasons for doing Shakespeare is because the verse and the text is so breathtaking. And to hear some of those lines, And that's something you get a great chance of doing if you work with Peter Hall and Trevor Nunn and John Barton. I mean, they're aficionados about how to speak the text and how to obey the punctuation and how to see the half lines and the other half of the line, you know, the way it's written. I think that's the glory of it, really. I don't want to much put it in. Although, well, having been in West Africa, we then, when I went back the next time in '69, there were a lot of drama groups formed of young people doing Shakespeare in just exactly whichever way they felt in order to tell the story of the scene. That was incredibly exciting. So perhaps the answer to your question is yes, with young people, yes, partly. Not as a substitute for the verse, but perhaps as a way into it, yes, could be.
When you come to the end of the play, or any play that you're doing, the end of a run, does the character stay with you? Does it colour subsequent parts that you take on, or do you find it quite easy to detach yourself from it and start something new?
I don't think it stays with you. I don't think. Somebody once said that when I was doing Macbeth and Much Ado, and Comedy of Errors, I think, at Stratford, and they said, does, for instance, Lady Macbeth hang over a bit into the next performance? I said, well, it can't. You can't afford to. You have to get rid of it at tea time, in a way, because you have to then suddenly think about Beatrice in Much Ado, or you have to think about Adriana in the Comedy of Errors. So it has to be quite a quick turnaround. And I think a lot of people think that you carry a part home and, I suppose it does to a certain extent, but I don't think seriously so. You have to be quick on it. You have to learn to turn on a sixpence, actually.
Having had so much experience, how do you continue to challenge yourself as an actress?
How do I? Well, I tell you, sometimes you get asked to do something, you think, I know how to do this. I know. And I swear that in 54 years, every single play that I've ever done has thrown up some problem that I find really hard to come to terms with or interpret, or I find hard to do. So you can't get complacent about it, and you can't ever think, I think, that you know it all. I know a bit about technique now, and I could teach people that, but I can't. I think that if you get so sure that you can play something, I think it's dangerous ground to be on. I think it's better to be uncertain about things. And then you're, in a way, open to somebody else saying, actually, try it another way, And the more difficult it is, the better the challenge. Although the more irritating in a way sometimes, because you never get it right sometimes. And in film, there it is in formaldehyde. Can't change it. And that's really, I think, frustrating to watch and see and think, why was that the decision I made? But
Richard.
Do you ever go and watch your own films? And if so, which do you like best and which do you like least?
There are lots of films quite a lot of films I've made that I have never seen. Because it is always that thing. I was explaining actually at lunchtime. It is the thing, isn't it, of you do you remember when we had suddenly all had recorders, and you suddenly, for the first time, heard your voice, and you thought, that's not me. That can't be me. Or you see a photograph of yourself when you think you're having a particularly good day. And you think, well, that's certainly not me. Well, that's what it's like. And when we did Macbeth with Ian McKellen for Trevor Nunn, I thought that sometimes it was quite remarkable, the play and the production. Well, I saw that when I televised it, when it was televised, and I was completely shattered. And I thought, that can't be what we did. And certainly I felt what I had done was better than what I saw, but it obviously wasn't. There it was. And so it's very, very frustrating. Films, I think, are very frustrating because you cannot change them. The thing about the theatre is that you can change it. Although, when I directed Much Ado, I gave an actress a bit of business with an apple, which used to go down so well. And I went back to see it, to give them notes, and I looked, thanks, Frankie, I looked, and she cut it. I said, why have you cut that good business with the apple? She said, my mother didn't like it. Well, that's why directors won't let your friends and lovers come to previews. Or the first night, actually, because that puts the critics back up. They suddenly hear a lot of people laughing. But you have to be, I suppose, you have to learn to judge what you think is right. When you play a part, but I think you have to rely on a very good director, and perhaps not your friends, to say, oh, wonderful, you know.
Okay, over there.
You said that you loved performing in light music. I wondered what were the particular challenges of performing in a musical?
Performing again in a musical? I don't know. I was meant to be doing something at the moment called Sondheim on Sondheim, which was on Broadway, but it's been cancelled. Well, it hasn't been cancelled, it's been postponed for a bit. And it may now be next year, or later this year. I don't know. And maybe I'm not able to do it. I hope I am, because it was a thrilling experience, I must say.
So what are the challenges of performing in a musical?
What?
Challenges of performing in a musical.
Well, the challenges of performing in a musical is you have to have a singing voice. But there again, like I said to this gentleman here, Hal Prince, who I played Sally Bowles in Cabaret here, the production in London, and he said, whatever you do, read the book about her, read what Christopher Isherwood said about her, that she couldn't possibly ever have been a star. That she was a girl from a middle-class family who'd fetched up in Berlin, was wearing a rather racy costume, and singing in a voice that was not actually acceptable. And he also said, this is a very good tip. If you ever do a musical, he said to me, what you must never do is speak in one voice and sing in another. The voice you speak in must be the voice you sing in. And he also said, if the song doesn't take the story on in steps of telling the narration, then it's not worth doing. And that's very good. That's very good because it gives you an acting chance to do in the song, because you think this is I've got to tell this bit of story here. But I was petrified because I sing well, like I speak. But he said that's what you should do. Don't stop to be suddenly an opera singer or sing in a voice that we don't recognise. Good tip, that.
Okay.
What else? This blue shirt gentleman here.
Oh, yep.
He's had his.
There you go, Mark.
You mentioned that early on you had the odd bad review. I don't imagine you do now, but do you read reviews and how do you cope?
I don't read reviews now anymore. Not anymore. Not since I got some real killers. I thought, no, I'm not going to do that again. It's only because the time I decided that was because I got some good reviews and some bad reviews all for one play. And I thought, well, who do I believe? And I thought it's much better to be truer to your director and your actors. And indeed hear what the audience says, but nevertheless, that you can't. How do you balance it? How do you balance a bad review and a good review? I don't know, so I don't read them now. I just can't. And anyway, instinctively, I think, if you're no good in the part. And why should I betray my director? So you just have to tell the story to the best of your ability. And somehow hope that it will make somebody angry or happy or whatever. Somehow react, an audience. So they're slightly different when they go out than they were when they came in.
there any from this side? Or should we just keep with this side? Okay, fine.
Oh yes, there's somebody here.
Someone? Oh, yep, go for it.
I wanted to ask you about playing Elizabeth in Shakespeare in Love. How did you compress that character to the 7 or 8 minutes that you have?
7 minutes, 8 minutes. How long was it? I'm not quite sure. Not very long. After I did Mrs. Brown with John Madden, I just said I had such a wonderful experience. I said to him, if ever you have a part that is just sweeping up at the back or walking across the back quickly or anything, I volunteer myself for it. I said, I don't care if it's got no lines or anything. And then sometime later he rang me, he said, I have got a part which almost only just walks across the back, but you wear a big dress, he said. that was how that came about. And we had a glorious time. I wasn't there for very long, but I had a very good time doing it. And he's a great, great director, I think. I've just been in India with him for 9.5 weeks, making something that will come out later this year. He's a most marvellous director, John Madden. I expect you've seen lots of things he's done. He's very, very good.
Okay.
And reassuring.
Yep, there.
I was just wondering if you had a preference for playing either Shakespearean tragedies or comedies, and why?
Shakespeare tragedy or comedy?
Yeah.
And which?
Yeah, which one would you?
Maybe a comedy one night and a tragedy the next, which, well, you know, if you're in the season at Stratford, you get a chance to do. You get a chance to play several things. The only play I never liked doing is A Merchant of Venice, but I don't like the play much. I should never have said yes. But that's the treat of it, you know. Really, those great plays, getting a chance to play, say, 3 or 4 parts in one season, that's, I think, the most exciting of all. The juxtaposition of tragedy and comedy and the histories, and in a good theatre with an audience, what could be better?
Yeah.
Have we exhausted everybody, no?
Do you get involved in silliness at the press junkets? You know, like coverts or like Michael Gambon apparently makes things up in answer to questions.
Did you mess around on stage at all and mess around with lines?
Do we mess around on stage all the time? Never with the lines, never, never. Michael Gambon is one of the worst people to be on stage with in the world. I'm here to tell you.
The press junkets for Bond or Mrs. Brown or Shakespeare in Love. You know,
Well, in film, you mean?
Do you sort of make, apparently, Johnny Depp had for Sleepy Hollow, you had to say a particular word for in each answer. You know, if you had any silly thing.
Basically, he wants to know if you mess around with the lines in films.
No, you do, I tell you, you don't get a chance to mess around with film lines. That's why you have to know it too very well, because it's much too expensive.
He means talking to the press, though. Do you have like sort of words where you have to repeat a word 10 times over when talking to the press, or make something up when you're talking to the press? Is what he's asking. You play games with the press.
Do I play games with the press? Are you in the press? Well, you know, talking to the press is another thing entirely. That's hard, I think, because the press nearly always come with an agenda of some kind. So, you know, are you alluding to that wonderful remark when they said to Michael Bryant, he said, I was homosexual once, but he said I stopped it because it made my eyes water, he said. And it was reported in the press, that was reported. I don't know really. When you answer questions to the best of your ability, and sometimes the questions are amazingly stupid that you get asked, you know, by the press. They take one aspect of something and they won't let that go.
Yep, there's a question there.
So one more kind of technical question. When a director decides to underscore a part of Shakespeare's text with music that Shakespeare didn't originally underscore, do you think that enhances the performance, or do you think it kind of clashes with the actor's inflection?
Well, you have to make up your mind about it, don't you, yourself, really. I mean, you sometimes do have to, you sometimes work with directors who have a very alternative view to what you think, alternative idea about something, which is maybe contrary to what you believe or what you feel, but at the same time, it may be very good for you to have that challenge and suddenly rethink something in another way. So it's all, I mean, it's not the age of directors saying, and you will do this and you will do that. It's much more democratic than that. It's democratic between you and the director and your other actors. So that you do what the director thinks, but somehow you work it in a way that you somehow can achieve that, and that's the challenge you have. To make it somehow your own. If it's strongly his idea, that's why he's probably said something to you originally anyway, when he asked you to play a part. He will say, that is my idea about it. If you strongly disagree with that and say, well, that's not what I think, then don't do the part. But if you want to be challenged and think, well, I'll try that way, and it might be wonderful. And I think it often is. But I think it's up for grabs sometimes, if somebody has an idea. You can say, to somebody, could I try something else? I once did that with Sam Mendes in The Cherry Auction. He was very, very young at the time, a very young director. And I said, Sam, do you think I could try this? Can I do this scene in a slightly different way and show you this? He said, you can, but it won't work, he said. And then he sat like this and kind of looked sideways. I never let him forget that. What else?
Let's just take one last question. Yeah, over there.
In the future, do you see yourself devoting more time to theatre or to films or to a mix of both?
I just want to be employed. I don't want to, I don't want to do those parts in wheelchairs. And, it's just as things happen, really. It's the decision you make to do something, and hopefully what it is will challenge you in some way. And so but I must say that having had, in a way, an aversion to making films, because I didn't know about the business of making films at all, I didn't enjoy it much, but I enjoy it now quite a lot, because I've learned an incredible amount from everybody. So I'm not just frightened of it. And I enjoy not the repetition of it, But on the other hand, if you're doing a play in the theatre which you're enjoying to do, there's nothing like the laughter of an audience, if it's a comedy, naturally, or the stillness of an audience, if it isn't. And also the fact that each night you can slightly hone it better. You might get it better. On the other hand, as I said before, it can go off the rails and you have to be brought back. But you do get a chance, and the audience is what, people say, you can rehearse for so long, and you can address all the things you think you have to address. Then comes a moment when an audience comes in and they teach you the most incredible amount of the play. That's why we now have previews where, as when I went to the Vic in 1957, we had no previews at all. We used to open cold. Just open like that, bang, and which was frightening and very immediate. But, we didn't have a chance to play something in for a while. Because you can go to a preview now, and then you can go when the play is opened, and you might find quite a considerable change in it. But that's the input of the audience. I don't think the audience realises how important it is sometimes. Somebody once said to me, does the audience make any difference to you? I said, if it doesn't make any difference, I'm going to stay at home. Why would I go to the theatre? Why would I go there? It's always different, too. Every single night the audience is different. So, there we are.
I think we'll leave it there. Dame Judi, thank you so much for coming. It's been a complete pleasure.